And away we go. Okay, I don't know where the heck do I begin with whatever stories are going to be discussed in this episode. And also, if they will allow me to cover such stories. But if not, I will carry on to the next episode. It has to be mentioned. It really does. So yeah, uh, stay cool, go with the flow, and stay informed. And also, question everything. But not just everything, but ask the right questions. So yeah, let's see what heapful amounts of stories that we have today, this evening. It's not the Nobel, but FIFA finally gave Trump a Peace Prize. Okay. According to the Associated Press, President Donald Trump was awarded the new FIFA Peace Prize during the 2026 World Cup draw event in Washington. President Trump and FIFA President Gianni Infantino have developed a close relationship, which began during Trump's first term after the US was selected as a 2026 World Cup co-host. Organizing the 2026 World Cup across the US, Canada, and Mexico required the creation of a White House World Cup task force, overseen by the Department of Homeland Security. This is what we want from a leader that cares about the people. Infantino said, "This is your prize. This is your Peace Prize." Trump looked overjoyed during the ceremony, even saying, "This is truly one of the greatest honors of my life." He thanked his family, as well as the leaders of the host countries, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. Trump said the coordination among the three countries has been outstanding. The award's creation highlights the relationship between Trump and FIFA's president, Gianni Infantino. The two have had several high-profile meetings at events unrelated to soccer, football, or even sports, according to the Times. So, Trump didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize for this year, so FIFA president Infantino decided, let's make a new reward for Donald Trump for trying to set up this World Cup. Look, I'm all for FIFA affiliated awards, either given to sports people, players, owners, dare I say, or other officials, but I get a feeling, no, not a feeling, I am certain that this award was just created out of thin air. And I'm not against Trump on whatever, but I'm not too supportive. I'm certainly not supportive on a lot of things he has done either. But it certainly doesn't go without saying, up until the moment he has been awarded a Peace Prize by FIFA, what's the process? Was there a committee? Was there any approval by other FIFA officials? There was a TikTok video I watched a while ago that actually discussed this. What's the process? Was it approved? What are the criteria to even win the award to begin with? Will this keep going? Will this happen every year or every time the World Cup is being held? Yeah, if until those questions have been answered, I'm just going to go on a limb, say that this award is just created out of thin air, all to appease the Orange Man himself, with all the launch codes and all the nukes that all other countries could ever imagine. Yes, those are big bombs. Those are some big boys, that's for sure. And yeah, there's not much I can say. That's life. That's how the world goes. It's all about the US. It's all about the Orange Man. And then a third thing, which comes about every now and then. So yeah, whatever happens, just go with the flow, you know? Or something like that. Drivers lose dozens of hours to traffic congestion. These cities have it worst. In the US, Chicago, Illinois drivers faced the worst congestion. They lost out on 11.2 hours and $2,063 according to the INRIX analysis. Istanbul, Turkey is the most congested urban area in the world. It's been that way for 2 years, according to INRED. There were still places that saw less traffic delays and traffic fatalities are at or below pre-COVID-19 levels. Overall, in the US, drivers lost an average of 49 hours and $894 to traffic congestion in 2025, Enrics wrote, 6 hours more than 2024. Another report from Texas A&M Transportation Institute, published earlier this year, found that the average commuter spends 63 hours stuck in traffic annually, the most since 1982. The numbers show more traffic than we've seen, but also a different kind of traffic. David Schrank, a senior research scientist at the Texas A&M Transportation Institute and lead author of its study, said, hybrid work capabilities, online shopping, and other changes in our daily lives have reshaped when and where congestion happens. This can create more unpredictability and make travel harder to plan. You know, I do have an idea that could actually fix at least 40 to 60% of these problems. Improve on public transportation. And I'm not just talking about improving the bus network for local communities. Maybe implement light rail trams / streetcars, depending what you call them. Maybe implement commuter rails to connect other neighborhoods within said state, or even the country perhaps. And the airports where people go to that connects them to tropical or major city destinations. Who's to say that you can't implement air travel at a regional level in a similar infrastructure to public transportation? I'm just saying. I'm just throwing crap wherever it goes, whatever hits the fan, and I'm just coming up with something. But yeah, you would never see problems like that in Europe because they've actually, well, first off, most cities in Europe have actually kept the public transportation that was created around the early mid 20th century, even when some cities decide to put to rest their local public transits made in the 20th century. Out of the cities that have kept it up until today, they have not just upgraded the light rail system in their local communities, but they have also expanded the track beyond their own cities and communities to other neighboring communities nearby. I don't know why people don't know this, but having forms of public transit is key to economical growth. But not just economical growth alone. Having public transit allows valuable opportunities for property developers to construct new homes and accommodations nearby such public transit stations. And if more homes are being built close to stations or public transit systems, then you kind of practically solve like 30-40% of the housing market problems. That's just me, going off on a limb. I usually do. Again, I don't know why not many people are taking notice of this. Even if there isn't much research or information on this, but I know for sure that wherever there is public transit, there is lots of potential for property development, new homes, and local businesses to be built nearby such stations that will draw in a lot more people. Now, if the streets in cities were to be pedestrianized mostly, and yeah, actually, yeah, public Public transportation is one thing, but pedestrianized streets where the businesses are located in, that's going to bring in a lot more people into their businesses. That's just my brief understanding. You want to fix the congestion problems with people in motor vehicles, driving on motorways, highways, getting from place to place. Give people more options of getting around. Don't just don't just think that you could only get around in your daily life by car. You can take the bus. You can take light rail / streetcar. You could take commuter rail, and maybe to some extent, maybe not now, but if there are regional airports where you could just take a plane, fly to a nearby community, which is too close for international flights, but too far for any commuter rail networks, that's another option. I'm just saying, you got just because a country has so much money, which the United States does have, doesn't mean you should just go willy-nilly and just hemorrhage whatever budgets you have, having people to waste their money and waste their time waiting in traffic to get to where they want to be, because what their option of transportation is to get to where they want to be is the only option of getting around to where they want to be. That should not be the case. Anyway, wow, my jaw is hurting from all that talking. Goodness me. It really does hurt. But it's still true though. You want to fix congestion, give more modes of getting around, other forms of transportation, buses, rail, regional planes, helicopters even. I'm all for helicopters actually. That would be very quirky and very innovative in my opinion. It just makes sense in my opinion. Content creator is being investigated for launching fireworks in front of the Eiffel Tower to promote his documentary. The French authorities have opened an investigation to the French content creator Loïc Giuliano for promoting on Friday night the social media premiere of his documentary Napoli, dedicated to his favorite soccer football club, with a great fireworks show in front of the Eiffel Tower. The investigation has been opened for the crime of endangering the lives of third parties, since he did not have permission to launch the fireworks shows. Okay, I think there's more to this. I'm gonna try and read more of it. Okay, it's not letting me read the rest. So yeah, a content creator launching fireworks in front of the Eiffel Tower for a documentary about the soccer football club. Good for them. It's nice to see you're showing support for your favorite sports team. But of course, you don't think you can just do whatever you want in public and not face some kind of consequences. Not that it's dangerous, but there are permits and other regulations vary by local law for even being allowed to do such stunts. And if you don't follow any of that, then you're going to be in hot water, my guy. Absolutely. What's important is people have not been injured since the firework display has been put up and have been displayed. That's what's important. Because if there have been injuries, then this could have been a lot worse. This lad would be facing serious jail time. Abs for sure. That is something. Gen Z's search for decorative collectibles is fueling vinyl sales. Vinyl records are popular again, but it's not just audiophiles or nostalgic boomers fueling the resurgence. Gen Z is playing an outsized role in the revival of vinyl sales, which have grown on average by 18% annually in the past 5 years. About 60% of Gen Z say they buy records according to Future Source Consulting's Audio Tech Lifestyles report. But Gen Z isn't necessarily buying records for their unique sound. Around 40% of record buyers in the United States don't own a turntable, noted James Duval, principal analyst and head of entertainment at Futuresource Consulting. 56% of Gen Z fans like vinyl for its aesthetic, while 37% use it as home decor, according to a Vinyl Alliance survey. It's part of where Jared Watson, an assistant professor of marketing at New York University, calls symbolic consumption. It could show that you're a bigger fan or that you appreciate the artist more, he noted, adding that albums are affordable art. The vinyl resurgence can largely be traced back to Taylor Swift, who has promoted her albums as artsy collectibles, sometimes including additional songs, posters, or poems for her dedicated fanbase. And her variants are each a different piece of the story she curates, which has raised the bar for everyone, like singers Lana Del Rey and Olivia Rodrigo, said Jeffrey Smith, Vice President of Marketing at Discogs.com, a database and marketplace for physical music. Alright then. Now, this is not to say that people will be using vinyl records anytime soon, but if there are a handful of people that do still listen to vinyl record music, it's great to see that people are reconnecting with nostalgia. Because you never know that some things are they don't last forever. Looking back on something from the past reignites memories of said past, like it sure has for me. Because of rising valuations, Gatwick blames a more than doubling of business rates with a projected £11.9 million hike to £51.6 million in 2026-27, despite a 30% cap. The new price is a 43% increase from the previous change and will be implemented from January 6th, after a fee first introduced in March 2021. Passengers with bulky or heavy luggage will face higher drop-off costs, and the charge is likely to be added to taxi and minicab fares. Blue badge holders remain exempt, and passengers can avoid the fee using long-stay car parks with a free shuttle. Across UK airports, Gatwick will have the highest drop-off fee, while Heathrow raises its price to £7 from January 1st, and London City introduces a fee later this month. Now, I'm not saying this because I don't want to pay extra money for the little things. Then again, how are people not mad by this? Have we not learned anything from what the French have done? At least the French when it comes to protesting in general and speaking out against the big guys. Hey, you can't do this, that's too much. We cannot afford that. I've seen lots of protests all over the world. Nepal, Bangladesh, Tanzania, Bulgaria, and even Serbia. Where are those kinds of protests in the UK? Anyway, that's just me. And even if there are people who can afford it, what much of a difference does that make if people weren't charged a fee to begin with on anything? How much money would people save if they didn't have to pay any fee for anything at the airport? Even if the difference is very small, a couple times a year, long term, you can see the massive impact on the amount of money that people would have been able to save that could have gone to buying more food, getting toys for the children, BMX bikes, what else? Makeup for the women. I'm just saying, even the smallest of fees that aren't being implemented whatsoever can make the biggest of differences in the long run. That's my concern. even the fees are small now. Who's not to say that these fees will raise up again in the next few years? How much more money could everyday people lose out if they didn't have to pay that fee at all? Or if fees at the airport were never a thing to begin with? There's a lot to think about, you know? There really are. The government calls for caution after the red warning from the AMET, the Spanish Meteorological Agency, and emergency services in Valencia have issued a red alert effective today, Sunday from p.m. It will also affect Almeria, where the alert is being activated at a.m. The alert indicated an extraordinary danger, according to the statement from the State Meteorological Agency. The final hours of Saturday brought bad news as AEMET, the Spanish State Meteorological Agency, activated a red alert. An ES alert messages began to be sent out. Citizens were notified in advance, and it is hoped that this will significantly help to minimize the risks. Authorities are urging extreme caution, as a red alert signifies extraordinary danger. As always, having information about what might happen is key. The red alert is in place on both the north and south coast of Valencia, with a wide range of locations that will be affected from 12 p.m. onwards. AEMET indicates the areas under weather warning in Valencia on December 14, 2025. And the list as follows: the port of Sahunt, Sierra, Padroba, Iria, Liliana, Meliana, Cheste, Valencia capital, Catarroja, Buñol, Real, Benifacio, Benifio, Carlet, Alzira, Castello, Navarrese. The problem that triggered the alert is torrential rain, which, according to AEMET forecasts, could accumulate more than 180 millimeters in a 12-hour period. The forecast for Sunday is that accumulation could exceed 250 millimeters throughout the day and into early Monday. The red alert is activated at 12 p.m. on Sunday, and barring any changes will not be deactivated until 5:59 a.m. on Monday, December 15th. Well, I hope people around Valencia that firstly they are safe, secondly they stay dry, and thirdly that there isn't much damage to property, vehicles, or anything across Valencia. I can't imagine anything like this happening to anyone else, even me. And even I don't want that. I don't ask that for anyone else. Other than that, for a country as dry as Spain, whilst any form of precipitation is very good for Spain's climate, too much of it all in one go, and especially flooding across the streets of Valencia or any parts of Spain, can be destructive, as it is beneficial to the natural climate and environment that Spain has. So that comes to show, even things that are good for you can also be bad for you, depending on how it's being implemented. China's smaller manufacturers look to catch the automation wave. In a light-filled workshop in eastern China, a robotic arm moved a partially assembled autonomous vehicle as workers calibrated its cameras, typical of the incremental automation being adopted even across smaller factories in the world's manufacturing powerhouse. Oh boy. Now, even if this was AI, I'd say, boy. Automated robotic arms in factories have been a thing for many years, and could be the earliest concerns to what AI is today. The only difference is AI as we know today is more accessible to the public. Robotic arms in factories, well, they only apply to factories. Only in only industrial sectors where robotic arms would ever be useful in such specific context. It could be used in other things, but factories is the first thing that comes to my mind. So what's significant about this story is that even the smallest of factories in China are implementing such technology, whilst the biggest, well, names have some kind of automation. The small-scale factories in China are also implementing such technologies that even the big guys are using, which on the surface level shows the technological advancement of China. But if you were to ask a certain someone living in the Scottish Highlands, he will say China is crippling down. They're in desperate need of repair. If it's not for the US, they would not have the technological advancements that they have today. And you know what? He may potentially make some kind of a point. It's not the full truth, but it is something. And I think I would say the same for a lot of countries. No matter how good the infrastructure is of buildings, transportation, and the operation of businesses, you have to ask, how is any of that possible? Surely, it must have costed a lot of money to get something like this up and running. Even if you look at the prices being so cheap, it could be a lot higher. Not saying it is higher, but it could be a bit higher than what the initial price shows. But that's neither here or there. So back to China's smaller manufacturers and automation wave. Well, it's going to happen at some point, not just with China, but other small factories somewhere in the world. It's going to come to that point where the more of the product that's being produced, both the more accessible it becomes and also the affordability becomes better. I'm not saying it's going to be cheap, but again, supply and demand. There has to be some kind of balance that influences some kind of price to the produce, the goods, and the services that we use. Maybe not the services, that's debatable. But in terms of the goods, that can shift at any point. Hungry winemakers fear disease may wipe out industry. We spray our vineyard to protect it, but it is futile. The leafhoppers carrying the disease move to untreated vineyards or wild vines nearby and return infected, the 45-year-old told AFP. Hungary, the world's 14th largest wine producers, according to the International Organization of Vine and Wine, is renowned for such regions as the UNESCO recognized Tokaj, or Tokai. I'm not sure what the letter J makes for the sound. So wow, okay. Seems like there is a disease amongst the winemaking industry in Hungary, and something has to be done as soon as possible. Otherwise, well, how is someone going to make wine for the people of Hungary and just send the wine out to other countries? That is concerning. But even if the wine industry in Hungary does go out, there's still other wine producing countries like Spain, France, Italy, Greece, Cyprus, Malta, or at least countries with a Mediterranean-esque climate and environment. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I hope whatever problems are in Hungary with the wine, it gets sorted as soon as possible. Now, just before I started recording this episode, I came across not just one, but two stories about shootings in the same day. Now, the last time I've heard of more than one shooting taking place was around.
Let me continue, or what? I knew it. Come on, man.
Doing, man. Okay. I don't know what just happened, but you know what? I'm not gonna let them get in the way. Alright, so like I was saying, two stories I just came across about shootings taking place somewhere in the world. Okay, so firstly, Bondi shooting death toll raises to 16, including a child after gunman targeted Australia's Jewish community. The death toll in mass shooting targeting Jewish people at a Hanukkah celebration at Sydney's Bondi Beach in Australia has risen to 16, an Australian minister says. Police say the Hanukkah event was the explicit target and planned for months, prompting authorities to treat it as a terrorist attack, while New South Wales Police Commissioner Mal Leon said the counter-terrorism command leads after suspected improvised explosive devices were removed. Authorities confirmed footage showed two men firing from a bridge, with witnesses reporting up to 20 shots. One gunman was shot dead. The second is in police custody, and Rabbi Eli Schlanger was among the dead. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns said, "What should have been a night of peace and joy, celebrated in that community with families and supporters, has been shattered by this horrifying evil attack." And Israel confirmed one of its citizens was among the dead, while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu criticized Australia's response. As investigators continue, authorities probe possible additional offenders, with the counter-terrorism command leading at Campbell Parade, while New South Wales police and officials plan updates on Monday. The other shooting that has happened was at Brown University, and the headline reads, Police have person of interest in custody over Brown University deadly shooting. December 14th, Providence police detained a person of interest linked to the Brown University shooting that left 2 dead and 9 wounded on campus. Saturday afternoon, just after 4 p.m., the shooting occurred during final exams in the Bowers and Holy building, which houses the School of Engineering and the Physics Department with outer doors unlocked. Surveillance footage from 184 Hope Street shows a man in black leaving toward Waterman, while shell casings and forensic teams help identify the suspect, Providence Police Commander Timothy O'Hara said. Authorities ordered campus-wide sheltering on the Brown University campus and later lifted parts of the lockdown, while a reunification center at the Nelson Fitness Center at 225 Hope Street operated and Sunday exams were cancelled. Federal Bureau of Investigation and Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives joined the probe, while Governor Dan McKee and Rhode Island congressional delegation pledged support. Christina H. Paxton said, "This is a deep, tragic day for Brown, our families, and our local community." So those were the two shootings that I've heard about just before I started recording. And just before I was just reading out the story, there was a technical problem on Riverside's end. I'm not saying that there is someone trying to stop me, but I will say this, I am sick and tired of when there are serious stories, there are people losing their lives for just going about their lives, and even to some extent, what people identify as is just outrageous. Bondi Beach in Australia. I've saw on the Instagram stories at Bondi Beach, there are I can't describe how graphic the images were when I saw people just laying on the ground, trying to see if people can still respond. And I'm not going to say if those people are still alive or not, but such detail like that alone is just tragic. It's absolutely awful. And as for what happened at Brown University, I don't. Where on earth was the security at Brown University? Why were the students at Brown University just trying to seek shelter from what could have been life-ending for them? And even if there are lives that I've lost, no one should lose their lives like that. Also, this should not go without saying. Rest in peace to the people at Bondi Beach, Australia, and the students and other passerbys at Brown University whose lives were lost because they were caught in a shooting crossfire. I send my deepest condolences to the friends and family of those lives who were lost because of coordinated mass shootings. Honestly. Now, of course, I'm still mad at Riverside trying to cut me off when talking stories like this, but I'm also just as mad about how could people allow to have such events like that happen to other people and even lose their lives. And you know what? I try to be nice about immigration. I try to give benefit of the doubt to foreigners who want to find better lives in other countries. But who's to say that these foreigners that come over to other countries, and I'm not saying it's true, but what are the odds that whoever was behind the shootings, whether it be Bondi Beach, Australia, or Brown University in America, what if they're not from the countries where those events took place? And I try to have a positive perspective on foreigners that try to make a new life in other countries outside of the country of origin. However, seeing how events like this happen more often in Western geopolitical nations like US, UK, Australia, countries in Europe, and these countries have the highest net migration from than other countries, if that makes sense to people. Any other countries like Gambia, Peru, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, how often do you hear about immigration to those countries that don't get much attention? They don't have big enough economies like countries in Europe or UK, US, Australia. How is it when there is gun violence and there are issues regarding, allegedly, people whose origin is not from the country where such events are taking place? How is it I'm hearing more of these events in Western geopolitical nations? Any other country you go to where there isn't much talk of immigration to such countries, you never hear such problems like that. If I go to Panama, I wouldn't believe that the problems in Panama are similar to what happens in Europe. And not just because of cultural differences, but because you don't hear about Panama all that often, other than the fact that people go to Panama because the the weather in Panama is amazing. You would go to Panama for the beaches, the white sandy beaches and the sea. The landscape is gorgeous. And look, even countries that aren't Westernly geopolitical, again, those countries also have their own problems. But when I hear more often than not, issues from more developed nations when lives are being lost, it's always coming from European countries or the US. I want to know. I'm genuinely curious if there are more stories like that in other countries outside of the West. If there are, tell me. I'll hear you out. I will hear you out. Until then, I am more than convinced that regardless of the identity of whoever these shooters are, whatever the motives, and the damage that the said shooters have caused to the local communities and the lives that were going about their lives in such communities. I don't hear much stories like that in other countries, because I don't hear about these countries' achievements. I especially don't hear often about people wanting to live in that country because it has welfare benefits. It has great healthcare. I'm not saying the healthcare in other countries are bad, but if you go into another country that isn't from the West, what's the reason of going there? What benefit would you be receiving if you were a foreigner? I'm just saying, I try to look on the bright side, even at the horrible things going on in this world, and I try to have an alternative perspective to the story. However, it's so hard to have any benefit of the doubt or any positive aspects or perspectives if there are people going to cause violence and unaliving people. And regardless of what your sexuality is, what your religion you practice, whatever your ethnicity is, and whether you're from the country or not, no one should lose their lives. Ever. Even if I've done horrible things, desperate times call for desperate measures. And if it's down to me, and this is a very hot take, I don't blame anyone for disagreeing with me on this. Such shooters, don't send them to prison. I'd send them to the nut house. Because the thinking behind unaliving people at such a mass scale is delusional, in my opinion. These minds should be studied. Serious measures have to be put into these people. I don't ask for anyone to lose their lives. All I ask is take higher measure for such incidences. Because honestly, I'm done. I can never be more done with this than I currently am right now. And whilst everyone is entitled to their own opinions, that is where I stand. No one should lose their lives for any reason or for who these people are. It's outrageous. And I'm also still mad at Riverside FM for continuing their technical problems when discussing such stories like this. Do better. Do a lot better than this. This is getting embarrassing and sickening. And that is it for this episode.